Well, today's a lucky day for somebody. And today the lucky day is for my friend Mr. T down there in Vegas. We're going to omit his name to protect the innocent, per se. Mr. T happened to be in the right place at the right time. And he wasn't messing around. He took care of business. He got right on it. The guy came up to me when I was delivering something to another customer of mine and says, "Hey, I want to buy an amp from you." I said, "Okay, great, cool." And this whole process for him started about a year ago. And it is finally his time to turn up in the list of things that I've got to work my way through here pretty quick. I've got 2 32 pills and a 24 pill and a few others that I'm working on that are pretty big builds. They're in the background right now. But this one here, this guy's been waiting a long, long time for it. And I can't wait to do it for him. So you guys are invited to come sit back, relax, put your feet up, because this is going to be a long video-ish. We're going to take and build this guy a kick-ass 6-pill with an oversized heatsink, so we're using a straight 8 board. So he's going to get more heatsink than what you'd normally get. We're going to stick it inside this 24-pill mobile cabinet. We're going to block off this vent over here in the corner. We're going to make it so that the air is all funneled down, around, and through the heatsink, so we actually get cooling. We're going to overbuild the power supply, and we're going to have fun. So, on that note, let's get the transistors down, and let's get the board all built up for him. And then we'll put it in the cabinet, and then we'll populate the cabinet with the power supplies, and we're going to use our never fail 20 amp breaker. We're going to wire this thing up 110, and he'll be off to the races and running. He's going to match this up with his radio that he got from his friend, my friend also, Cue Ball, down there in Vegas. We're just going to build him a solid. Gentlemen, away we go. Well, this is it, gentlemen. Board is 99% populated. The rest of it we got to wait until we put it in the amp. I did some stuff that I don't normally do, like instead of having the bias run down this portion of the board, I created these little raised traces, solder pads, and mounted them, the bias resistors and diodes and all that stuff, out here. Made it all under the board feed, so the 12 volt hot comes in here, switches out here, goes here, gets chained, gets chained. Normally we make all of that fit up here in this space. But I just wanted to try something different, do something a little different, but this thing turned out pretty. So the next thing I need to do is take this, mount it up in the cabinet, and let's start getting the cabinet populated with power supplies and breakers and switches and grommets and stuff. So away we go. So there used to be a time where we would just put these 3 modules in here, and that'd be enough to run these. These are, according to the data sticker on the side of this thing, 500 watt, okay, 40 amp modules. Now, if I was to make the argument just on the data tag, and this is what drives me nuts about people and data sheets today, since we've had so much stuff made overseas for us in China and whatnot, the Chinese have realized nobody really pays attention to the data sheet anymore. Well, they do, but then they don't. And there would have been a time where we would have took these 40 amp modules and sent them back to China and said, "Eat this, send us back the product that we ordered." We've tested and shown on video, I'll put the link in the description below. These modules are really only good if you bring the voltage up past 12, even at 12 volts. But the way we like to run them is around 14, almost 15 volts. Like these, I have them all trimmed out to 15.5. These modules are only good for about 20, 25 amps a piece. Even though on the sticker it says 40, we know for a fact, load testing them, that these are only good for about 20, 25 amps. Let that sink in for a minute. That has a lot of downstream ramifications. do we not only have the cost of this board, we have the cost of the modules and the cost of the cabinet. This all factors in. Back in the day, like not even a year ago, we could put 3 modules in here, and you, me, everybody else looking at these things, be like, oh yeah, power supply's more than enough. It'll handle it. Not today. So we went from having 40, 80, okay, 120 to 25, 50, 75 amps. Well, we all know it's about 25 amps per transistor, so we have to be somewhere in the area of 130 to 150 amp supply to make it to where these transistors aren't going to suffer from low current. So here we are today. The reason I'm making a point of this is because the price of the modules hasn't changed. They're still $28 to $30 a piece. And instead of us having to invest, you know, $90, now we're investing $180. And then on top of that, now we have to go with even a bigger cabinet. The cabinet adds another $100, $200 to the deal. And because of our custom cut cabinets that our friends over at ICA have worked so hard to perfect, now we're having to go to these bigger cabinets like this. That means more fans, it's just more. It's more stuff. It's literally double the amount of stuff. So if you haven't calculated this into your costs, people go, well, why is it more expensive? Because now we're having to use twice as many modules. The cabinet's twice the footprint now. So that means more metal, more shipping costs. I'm telling you all, us as an economic whole drinking from the Chinesium tit, we're going to pay for it in the long run. We are. We really are. But for this particular build today, I still have 3 more modules I have to mount, 3 more modules I have to wire, 3 more modules that I have to bring into the circuit and balance, which is more time, more materials, more time, more cost, more parts, more, and more. All at the end of the day, so we can produce a 15 to 1600 watt amplifier that's going to work for a reasonable amount of time. Now, I have faith that I could probably put 3 modules in here and be like, woo, look at it run on the meters, woo, and it'd work for a hot minute, right? Meanwhile, these things are sitting here just, they're freaking out, right? For me to make it so that this thing runs reliably for this guy forever, I sold this box at one price. Even though I can't get the modules I wanted to be able to achieve that price, I can't put it in a cabinet for me to achieve that price. We as builders have to step up and do the right thing and do the right thing. Just do the right thing. Which in this particular situation means more, 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 and more, and more, and zero that we get to go after the customer for. Now, I've already explained this to the customer and said, hey man, you know, you're going to have to kick down a little bit because it is starting to cost more. But going forward from this point forward, all my prices have got to go up. I hate to break it to you. If a price of milk per gallon is at like $4 a gallon and a dozen eggs is like $4, the price of diesel is at $4 a gallon. In some parts of the country, it's at 8 and 10. You're crazy not to think that doesn't affect the overall cost of the manufacture of this. So I got to raise my prices up, unfortunately, as long as we have access to these modules. And this is the only thing there's some better modules out there. Like this here, this right here. This here is a legit 40 amp switcher. Problem is I can only find 2 of them. Looks the same, inside, not the same. It sucks, but it is what it is. The cost of this, guess what? Is more. It's like $45 a module. That beats paying $60 for 2 to get the same performance. Food for thought. All right, moving on. My most favorite of all favorite solder joints here, guys. You all know my absolute love of this joint. Oh, I love doing that solder joint. I love it. So it's all washed. It's completed. Everything's all put together. I like this board design here with putting the, I like it, but it is a pain in the butt to build. It's incredibly time consuming, and I just did it because it was different. I've been seeing everybody else do it. I've got quite a few of my guys that are in my group that are going through all this effort to mount this down here. I thought, well, I'm going to give it a try and see how well it works. It works fine. This is slightly different. So I thought, nah, let's give it a shot. We are up and running. Everything here is set now. The only thing I got left to do is lock down that output tuning capacitance tube. And, sorry, I kicked the camera tripod. Lock down that output tuning capacitance tube and put the case on it, which is now completely completed as well. Let's come in here. All right, so going right to left is a 1000-watt slug in 1X in peak envelope power reading format. It's a 1000-watt slug, like I said. So then in the middle is a 1000-watt slug in average. Then a 5-watt slug in reverse back from the Bird 10,000-watt dummy load. Let's turn the amp off for a second. Let's turn the 5-watt slug around. Yeah, we're not joking around with it. We're throwing a dead key in this thing. So here, let's back up. We'll put a 5-watt carrier into this thing because I don't want it to be all swing. You guys remember I'm building this for a guy that's got a 150-watt radio. And initially this is supposed to be an 8-pill 454 box. Well, a couple things. One, I bought a whole bunch of 454s. I'm currently out. I got to get more. But the other thing is for me to support those 454 transistors, I'd have to have 4 more power supplies in here. It's getting silly. It's just getting silly. So we can get the same amount of power, a little bit less current draw if we just used 6 transistors. So the derail striker, turn the amp off one more time. Let's come over here and let's see what it's doing for numbers. Hello. Putting 120 watts into it with the derail striker. Go up here. Our pass-through tune. Hello, 1, 2. Otherwise, our RF's ability to pass through the amplifier and go to the antenna. Front of the striker. Hello, 1, 2. 1 bar. Okay. So now we know what all of our power levels are at, which is really, really important for measurement. Ooh, okay. And then finally, we've got our voltage on our power supplies, which I trimmed all of these to 15.5. Apparently, we've got one that's floating a little bit. It's all right, that changes. So we're keying about, 50 watts with 5 watts going in. Of course, it's off the scale. Easily over 1,000 watts. 1, 2. About 400 bird. That is on AM. So we'll kick on our sideband delay. We'll take the striker. We'll go over to sideband here. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. You see all the extra power supplies are necessary We get up there around 1,000 bird. Hello, 1, 2, 1, 2. And it'll do over 1,000 bird. But with 125 watts of drive on sideband, it gets down there 13.5. But look at it on AM. Hello, strong 15 volts. Okay. So now, this guy's goal was to get about 1,200 watts. We're going to turn this to 2x. And as we all know from watching multiple of my videos, we all know how to read a bird watt meter, I'm assuming. And what I mean by that is, now when the needle goes over here all the way to the right, which would be full deflection of the meter, that represents 2,000 watts. That switch, all it did is cut the signal from this element, cut it in half. 2,000 watts. And remember, on a bird 43 watt meter, the scale is not linear. Meaning, you get a whole lot more shmoo over here to the right-hand side than what's represented down here. And it really doesn't fall into its accurate range of meter movement until you get over about 50%. But 50% is now between the 40 and the 60, right here. 60's 12, next big hash mark's 14, that's 16, so on and so on. Okay, so now we're going to work in the land of the 2x. Let's see if we can crop this up a little bit better. Make it a little bit easier for y'all to see the meters. There we go. Hello. I'm seeing a solid 12, almost 13. Hello, 1, 2, 1, 2. All right. Now we've got to go up here and we've got to do this measurement. So we're looking at the front of the striker. Hello, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Hello, 1, 2. So 3/4 of a watt of reflect, and according to the striker, hello, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Everything's just Gouda. I mean, beautiful. What I think is hilarious is when I take this meter and I get it tuned in for 0, this one shows me 4 bars. So the striker's bridge in the front of it, everybody likes to get really excited about it. And I say, why? It's not that accurate. The bird's more accurate. I'd trust my bird meter over a striker bridge any day of the week. Well, what do I know? I'm just your friendly neighborhood amplifier builder. Okay. Let's go over to the striker 490. So now we're going to put around 200 in this thing. Now we're at the top end of the power response curve of the circuitry. You'll find that when it comes to RF, we'll say this is 0 and up here is power, and you'll put a little bit of power in, you're going to get a ton of power out in response, but then when you start to get up towards the max saturation of the component, you have to put more and more and more drive into it to get less and less return. Okay. And now we get our 1,400 watts. Hello, 1, 2, 1, 2. We drive it a little bit harder, we get a little bit more. Let's look at our voltmeter. Hello, 1, 2, 1, 2. Hello, 1, 2. Now, we can tell that the modulation limiter is still in that radio because now we're only getting 200 bird. Just saying. Hello, 1, 2, 1, 2. When that modulation gauge, or when the modulation limiter pulls into play, hello, you can see it, it walks up there, it goes up to about 400 watts, and goes, comes right back. Well, 14 some change, almost 1,500 watts. We're good. Power supply is strong enough to do the job. It's got all the right parts in all the right places. Sounds like an ex-girlfriend I used to have. Problem was she was missing parts in her brain. She was frickin' crazy. I swear, she'd go drinking on a Friday night, and it was like getting kicked in the front muscle every single time that she would come home. It was nuts. Anywho, we're good to go on this end of the situation. Let's shut this off. I want to tighten up that on-off switch a little bit. And let's get the case on this. I want to see it run, and I want to hear what it sounds like with the case on it. Well, I've spent a lot of time on this box, just playing with it, studying how it operates, playing with the power supplies. Learned a little bit. Actually learned quite a bit. It's only got one fan on it. I had to go with a little bit more aggressive high flow fan. I normally would like to have two. I'm trying to be sensitive to the fact that this is a bass amplifier and the guy's going to be sitting near this. So one high flow fan. I mean, it's moving quite a bit of air out the back end of this thing. Let's get our Chinesium airflow meter out here, or anemometer station. Anemometer. And let's see, units. Knots, CFM. See what silly number it decides it's going to come up with. There's no way that's moving 780 cubic feet of air. Or 308. This thing's worthless. I would say it's at least 110, 115 CFM. You know what? I'm just going to throw this in the trash. This is stupid. This thing is worthless. I'm going to get myself a different air gauge. There's no way this little fan is moving 780 CFM. It's got plenty of airflow. The power supplies have all got their own fans on them. So we'll call this a win. I'm going to wrap this video up, but what I got to do is I got to take this apart real quick. I got to clean the acrylic on the back side to make sure there's no little dust or dirt or anything, and then it'll be ready to go. So I'm tickled. This thing working. Hello, 1, 2, 1, 2. And it wants to give us more, but we're just not driving it that hard. Nor do I think we have to. The guy's radio is going to do 1500 or 150 watts, and I'm dumping 200 in it, so we know for a fact he's going to get somewhere between 12 and 1500 out of it. Hello, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Me personally, I feel that I've overbuilt the supply on this thing enough to where if one of these modules quit, he's probably not going to notice any power roll off and the amp's going to keep on chooching. I mean, I hate the fact that I got to think like that. Believe me when I tell you, I'm going to probably spend the next couple days going down a rabbit hole, like way down a rabbit hole, to go see what Alice and the bunny are smoking at the bottom. I've got to figure out something different. This whole system of cheap modules is just not cutting it anymore for me. So, let's see. Big shout out to Siglant. Another big shout out to MechMan. Another big shout out to Excess Power. Our friends at Bird and Coaxial Dynamics. And gentlemen, believe me when I tell you there might be a new one coming. Just might. If you haven't had a chance, come check us out on Patreon. Please, by the way, make sure that you are subscribed and you're actually getting the notification bell. I've had several people tell me that somehow magically they've gotten unsubscribed from my YouTube channel, which is screwed up as things are today. That wouldn't surprise me at all. YouTube is doing a very aggressive push to suppress quite a few people lately, so just do me a favor, double check. Give me a thumbs up. Leave me a comment on what you think about the power supply issue. I'd love to hear your guys' input. I really would. And give me suggestions. Put it all down in the comments. Comments been unlocked now for many years. Believe me when I say I'm not scared. Get down there. Let's go to war in the comments. I want to learn. You guys help me, I help you. come check us out on Patreon. Every little bit helps, because God knows this YouTube gargler will not push notifications from my channel, nor will it share it with any of you guys. So who knows? I appreciate you, gents. Have a good week coming up. I'll see ya. Quick click. One more quick setting that I want to talk to the customer about. If you decide in the future to quit starving this thing on 110 volts, because you and I both know, well, we all know, that most likely what this guy's going to do is plug it into a 110 volt outlet that is not committed just for this amplifier. So therefore he's going to be sharing his 15 amp electrical service that he has on his 110 outlet with his computer, his power supply, his other radio, the lights in the room, probably his kid's bedroom next door, and maybe even the wife's knitting room down the hall. If you decide to switch this thing over to 220, it's easily done. You're going to change out your power plug, just the plug, not the cable, the plug, see? You're going to cut off this Underwrite Laboratory, not Chinese excrement power plug. Okay, cut this off. Wire it up for standard 220. Which is black is hot, white is hot, green is ground in return. And you're going to come in here, and in each one of these little square holes, and that's the reason the power supplies are faced up in this direction, you flick these switches to where they read 220. Put the case back on it, flick on the on-off switch, and you're off to the races and running, okay? It's that simple. To convert it over, just change the plug, flip the switches. Okay, on that note, I'm out of here. I'll see ya. You guys have fun. Later. Oh, 220 is better and easier on the power supplies by a little bit. Just saying. Bye.